You know, the story of the 10 plagues is probably one of the most famous tales out there. But what if it's not just about divine payback? Today we're going to dig into the message of Exodus chapters 7 through 14 and uncover a story that's really about power, identity, and the very fabric of creation itself.
So, let's jump in. We're going to look at this whole thing not as just a list of terrible disasters, but as a drama that unfolds in 5 key acts. And as you'll see, it was all designed to send a very specific message in a world that was crowded with competing gods and powers.
All right, so our story kicks off in the court of, well, the most powerful man on the planet. And you have to understand, Pharaoh wasn't just a king. To his people, he was basically a god, the one who kept the entire cosmos in balance. And then, 2 guys walk in with a message. Moses and Aaron show up, and they're speaking for a god Pharaoh has never even heard of. And they demand he let go of his entire workforce. You can imagine Pharaoh's reaction, right? It's basically, who is this Lord that I should listen to him? And that question right there sets the stage for an immediate showdown of power.
So, the first miracle, it almost looks like a tie. Aaron throws down his staff, boom, it becomes a snake. But then Pharaoh's magicians step right up and do the exact same thing with their own secret arts. Now, if you're Pharaoh, this just proves your point, right? But then there's this one crucial detail. Aaron's snake eats their snakes. It's a subtle clue, a little hint that, not all power is created equal.
As this whole conflict starts to ramp up, the story really wants us to see these events through ancient eyes. These aren't just random disasters happening. No, they're very specific, carefully chosen signs, a kind of divine communication designed to answer Pharaoh's big question.
You have to remember, in the ancient world, everybody believed in lots of gods. Each one controlled some part of nature, the river, the sun, the harvest. So seeing a miracle didn't make you think, oh, that must be the one true God. It just made you think, wow, that's a powerful God. These signs are direct challenge, like a divine language meant to show who's actually running the whole show.
Now, this is where a really interesting pattern starts to show up. First, the Nile River turns to blood, a direct hit on a major source of Egyptian life and one of their gods. But the magicians can do it too. Then, frogs swarm the land, and again, they match it. From Pharaoh's point of view, it's a stalemate. His gods seem to be holding their own. But then comes the third sign, the gnats from dust, and everything changes.
So this third plague, the gnats, isn't just one more catastrophe. It's specifically designed to show that there is a fundamental difference between the 2 powers at play here. And the first people to see it are Pharaoh's own experts.
They tried to do what Moses and Aaron did. They tried to make gnats out of dust, and they can't. Their power has a limit, and in that moment, they turn to their king and say something incredible. They basically admit, what we're up against, this isn't magic, this is something else. They're facing the one who can actually create life.
And this just perfectly lays out the core difference, right? The magicians, they had a kind of destructive power. They could add to the chaos, but they couldn't undo it, and they definitely couldn't create new life out of thin air, or, dust. The power of Israel's God, however, is shown to be on a whole other level. He doesn't just have the power to take things apart, he can also create and restore order. He controls the entire operating system.
Okay, so this brings up a really tough question, one that people have debated for centuries. The text says God hardened Pharaoh's heart. So did Pharaoh ever really have a choice? Or was he just a pawn in some kind of divine drama? Well, if you look closely, the text actually shows a very clear step-by-step process. In the beginning, Pharaoh is completely in the driver's seat. The story says multiple times that he hardens his own heart. He's even given a choice. Moses literally lets him pick the exact time for the frogs to go away. But time and again, he sees the evidence, gets a reprieve, and then just digs in his heels. It's only after all that the language shifts and says God hardened his heart, almost like he crossed a point of no return.
All right, so now we get to the real climax of this whole thing, where the sequence of these plagues reveals its deepest meaning. This isn't just about turning up the heat on Pharaoh. It's a profound statement about who God is, and it's delivered in a language that any ancient person would have instantly understood.
Think about it. What's the ultimate way to prove that you are the creator? Well, how about showing you have the power to uncreate? The plagues systematically take apart the ordered world, piece by piece, and they actually seem to reverse the very order of creation we read about in Genesis chapter 1.
So in Genesis, the very first act of creation is God saying, "Let there be light." What's the 9th plague? A direct reversal. It's a supernatural darkness so thick, so heavy, that the text says it could be felt. I mean, that's a direct shot at Egypt's most powerful god, the sun god Ra, showing that the God of Israel has authority even over him. And it doesn't stop there. The Genesis story describes God bringing order by making a clean separation between the water and the dry land. But look at the first few plagues. They completely dissolve those boundaries. Water becomes unusable blood, creatures from the water swarm the land, and then the very dust of the land rises up to attack people. It's like the world is being returned to a chaotic pre-creation mess.
So after all of this cosmic deconstruction, this theological battle, what was the point? Why deliver this message in such a devastatingly dramatic way?
Well, the text is actually super clear about the goal. Over and over again it says it was all about revelation. The point was so that everyone involved, the Egyptians, the Israelites, and especially Pharaoh, would know who this God was. Not just another local God, but the sovereign creator of everything, the ultimate authority over life, freedom, and the entire cosmos. By showing us the plagues as a message about creation itself, the story becomes so much more than just a historical account. It becomes this foundational statement about power, and it leaves us with a question that, honestly, still hits home today. How do we recognize what real authority looks like, and where do we put our trust when the world around us feels like it's falling apart?